Module 4, Component Metadata, covers the following topics: parameters, declarations, 3D points, insertion points, and 3D entities. The first topic is parameters and declarations. So once we've completed our dimensional data, we can now create the metadata. Let's take a look at how we can open the metadata builder. We can click it from the button bar, we can select it from the pull-down menus, or we can do it from our tree at the bottom here. We can just select on component metadata, and it shows us our existing metadata. To create the new metadata for our component, we can right-click on metadata and say new metadata. Put in the name, so we'll call this flange cover. We can put in a description if we want, or just click finish. And it now opens the metadata builder. We will get an error dialog just saying that information hasn't been included yet. This is okay, we can just close this off. So now we're in our metadata. So we see now all of the subcomponents of the metadata. We see our parameters, our declarations, 3D points, insert points, and 3D entities. So the first topic is the parameters and declarations. So on our screen, we can add parameters to match our component. So from our dimensional data, our table properties, we can start to include those values for our component. To switch between the metadata builder and our tree structure, simply click on the Work Tools window for the 3D Smart installation or the metadata builder. While we're at the tree structure, we can scroll down and see our flange cover for our metadata. We can associate the metadata with our flange cover. Select the flange cover, right-click, Metadata Association. The dialog appears where we can search for our newly created metadata. We find our flange cover, and we click Associate. Click Yes. Say OK. The metadata is now attached to the flange cover. Let's go back into the metadata. Another thing we can take a look at are the line numbers. If you do not see the line numbers, if you select the Tools and go to Settings, there is a line number tab that says Show Line Numbers in Metadata Builder. Make sure this is toggled on. You may have to exit and restart the component designer for the changes to take effect. To add the parameter, simply click at the end of the line, hit enter, and we get a new line number, and then we can start typing in our default parameters. As we type, auto senses the parameters, and then we can just select enter. We use a colon as a separator, and then we pick our dimensional data files, which was our flange outside diameter. We're going to make this equal to, and we can make it equal to another variable or an actual value. This actual value would be used for viewing the component, and we'll take a look at that later. It is recommended to use metric values. So I'm using a 4-inch component, but converting it to metric with a soft conversion. We got 158 for the flange outside diameter. Hit enter. The next default parameter was our flange thickness. We'll make that to 24. We have another default parameter, and these will be our new parameters. Our ODC, outside diameter of the cover, from our data was 170, and one more, and that is our thickness of the cover, OTC, and that was equal to 30. The next section allows us to declare the variables. So rather than using actual values to define the 3D points and some of the entities, we can actually declare some variables. We really only have one that we need to declare, and I'd like to create a new one, just called FCT, and it's going to be equal to our overall thickness of the cover minus the flange thickness. And we can use this when we're placing our points. Once we're done that, make sure to save. Now, if we take a look at our parameters and our declarations, we can see that they are now in there, and we can start to build onto this. Our next topic is the 3D points. Now we're looking at placing points within the component where our objects, in our case cylinders, will be placed. We have our P0, which is equal to the X0, Y0, Z0, and is recommended to leave the 0, 0, 0 as a reference point. Let's look at our drawing to see what other points we would require. So if we assume our P0 to be the 0, 0, 0, we really only need 2 locator points for our cylinders. P1, which would be the outside flange diameter cover, and then P2, which would be the flange thickness. So we'll locate these 2 points. We will use point filters to create these points. To add another point, simply start typing P0, use the .x filter minus our flange cover thickness. Our Y would be just P0.y and also 0 in the Z. P2 would equal our P0.x minus the flange thickness. Again, our Y value would be 0, and same with our Z value would be 0. These are the only 3 points that we would require. Save this information. Again, we're still getting some errors because we haven't finished defining our component yet. And now we see our 3D points. Our next topic is insertion points. And these insertion points would be where we'd like to connect our component when we're placing it in the 3D Smart Modeler. So we can click to the end of the insertion point, and then we can actually use a macro. We right-click and insert a macro, and we want to insert a connection point for this insertion point. It'll ask for the ID point. Just leave that at 0. Our 3D point, where would we like this insertion point to be? And we'll place it at point 1. For the major radius of the cone, this is the connection cone that would show up. Typically, we'd make it about a quarter of the size of our overall diameter. So we'll just go ODC divide by 4. The normal vector, which way do you want this connection cone to go? And we're going to set it up to the west, which would be to the left on our diagram. The mating face, here's where we can tell it what we're going to connect to, and we'll just scroll down until we get to raised face flange. And then the component size, we can just leave at the main size and select Finish. It now puts in the information for us as a start connection, point ID, major radius, so the size of the cone, which direction it's going to go, and what it connects to. Again, let's click Save. And now we have an insertion point. The last topic in Module 4 is the 3D entities. We'll now insert some macros in order to create the component. We'll do this by inserting a macro of a cylinder to represent the outside diameter of the cover. Has a unique entity ID number. It's a draw unite situation. For our major radius, we'll use the outside diameter of the cover. For the minor radius, we'll use the same feature, outside diameter of the cover. But because it's a radius, we need to divide by 2. We'll click Next. The starting point will be P0, and our ending path will be point 2. So this will be the outside diameter of the cover. Click Finish, and it inserts all the information in the code to create that shape. You'll see our ODC divided by 2, and then our start and end points. So the second part of it will be another macro, which we'll use to subtract the inside portion, which is our flange diameter. So we'll insert another macro, another cylinder. This time, instead of draw unite, we will select draw subtract. So this will be subtracted from the first shape. We can use our flange outside diameter, divide by 2 to get to the radius. Click Next. This time, our starting point will be P1, and our ending will be P2. Click Finish, and there is our second entity that will be created. So we're creating 2 cylinders, one subtracted from the other. Click to save. No errors have been detected. We can take a look at the preview by selecting the Preview tab. This should open up a 3D view. If it doesn't, it may have been closed off, or it may be that your screen looked like this, and even though you selected the preview, it doesn't open. Just simply grab the right side of the screen and open it up so that we can see the component. In the 3D viewer, we have some basic 3D modeling view tools. If we click inside, click and hold our left mouse button, we can free orbit the component. We can see that the connection cone is there, and we can see the basic shape of the component. Other tools, if we right-click, we can zoom, we can pan, we can set it to a wireframe. Some basic features within the 3D view tool. We can then take a look at the next module, which is the menu creation. This concludes the topics covered in Module 4. Please review Module 4 or select the next module.